Gentlelady yields back. Mr. Kinzinger, 5 minutes.
Thank you, and I thank you, Madam Chair, for holding the hearing, and to the commissioners, thank you for being here today. I'm pleased to see the FCC reauthorization discussion draft includes provisions from legislation I introduced last Congress that would require the FCC to publish the draft of any item that's circulating on vote at the commission. And I'm also pleased to see the FCC Process Reform Act included in the bill that I co-sponsored with Chairman Walden in the past few Congresses to improve transparency and fairness. Mr. Chairman, you stated you're going to make transparency a priority, and I'm very encouraged actually by the efforts you've already made. While it's only been a few months, what benefits have you seen from some of the reforms that you've implemented?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. It's been tremendous. The first and foremost reform is the pretty simple one, letting the American people know what we're going to do at our public meetings at least 3 weeks before we do it. And that is something that we had been told for legal reasons we couldn't do or for policy reasons we shouldn't do. But in my second week, I instituted that reform, adopted Commissioner Clyburn's suggestion to accompany those items with a one-page fact sheet that explains in plain English what we're doing. And the results speak for themselves. People, including members of Congress, are able to see the specific details of what the agency is proposing to do. I would say for myself that it's made the meetings we have internally about those proposed items much more productive. Instead of this game of telephone where one party says, well, we hear that X, Y, and Z is in the item, can you confirm? And the commissioner or the commissioner's staff has to say, well, we can't disclose non-public information, but you might be on the right track. Those meetings simply don't happen anymore because everyone can see what's in it. Or if there is a meeting, we focus on the meat of an issue. You know, Chairman, you're wrong for this reason. Chairman, you're right for that reason. So it's been much more productive. Other process reforms we've instituted have been similarly helpful, and we certainly look forward to more of those going across the finish line in the time to come.
Good, and we have draft legislation that seeks to advance that even farther. I'll start by asking you and then turn to your colleagues briefly. What do you see in the legislation that'll be helpful, and what tools might we be considering as this legislation advances?
A lot of good ideas in the process reform section of the bill. Obviously, the creation of the Office of Economics and Data is something I'm very supportive of. I think it would be helpful to create a culture of big-picture economic thinking at the agency, and having Congress's support would aid that mission. Making sure that we institute more deadlines for commission action is something that I would certainly commend to the committee's attention. That's one of the things that we've talked about before, is that the agency can accept all these petitions and applications, but there's no accountability on the back end because we have no deadline for acting. So having those deadlines, having sunset clauses and the like would help our work. As I mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure if you were in the room, but the one caveat I would add is that for enforcement actions, it's often important for us not to disclose the content of those actions until after the commission has voted. That's one area where transparency, as important as it is counterweight, I think, by considerations of due process and notice and the like.
Understood. Commissioner Clyburn?
I'll be a one-hit wonder on here and talk about the sunshine rules. I was a chair of the Universal Service Joint Boards, and that was definitely a barrier to communication. So, you know, pushing that ahead is positive. And to the now current chair.
Well, thank you. I support the bill. I think there's many good improvements to our process. I think the sunshine, as I mentioned to the chairman of the full committee, that the sunshine changes probably could be broader in my opinion. I think they're a little limited, but they're improvements, so I'll take them. But I'm not sure they'll be used all that often. But I've put forward 15 ideas in my testimony that I think could be added to the bill to make it a little stronger. There are things that I was pushing when I was a minority commissioner, and I've advocated since, and said, you know, it doesn't matter from the minority or majority. I'm worried not about this commission. I think Chairman Pai has been a great leader in improving the accountability and transparency, but it's 2, 3, 4 chairmans from now that I'm worried about.
There's benefits to codifying. And Chairman Pai, last question. You updated us on the post-incentive auction transition process, and you mentioned that the $1.75 billion we provided is insufficient to cover the total cost of repack likely. You didn't mention whether the 39-month deadline will be enough time to complete the process. Is it too early to tell whether there'll be enough time to move it all within 39 months?
It is a little too early to tell. We've allocated the broadcasters who need to be repacked into different phases, and thus far we haven't yet commenced full analysis of whether those phases will be sufficient. But I can commit to this committee that we will keep you apprised promptly of any developments on that front if we get the sense that the 39 months will not be able to be met.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I'll give you 29 seconds back.
Sounds great.